Welcome back. Welcome back. I want to thank my new subscribers. I really appreciate y'all. Thank you for giving me the chance. And now we're back with the end of unions under Trump. Trump is winning against these unions and he is letting these people go. I think it's only going to be two unions that'll be successful to have a relationship with Trump, the Teamsters and Sean Fain, because he supports the tear-offs. And we're going to get off into it. But yeah, he went in and he putting his own person in. Damn, I forgot the lady name as the NLRB, and she is works for a union busting firm that represents Amazon, Starbucks, and another big corporation to stop unions from forming. So we in some very interesting times as it comes to unions and their membership. Okay, let's get into it. Over the subsequent decades, union membership has steadily declined, while income inequality began to steadily rise in the 1970s. In 2022, union membership plateaued at 10% of workers, while the top 1% of income earners earn almost 20% of total income. Earlier today, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics announced that the share of workers represented by unions was 11.2% in 2023, down slightly from 11.3% in 2022. This news of stagnation is especially sobering for the American labor movement because the past year was full of major victories and growing momentum. The UAW stand up strike led to record contracts for auto workers. Graduate students around the country won union elections, and public support for labor unions reached near record highs, especially among young Americans. The decline of American labor movement since the 70s has been a major cause of stagnating wages and rising income inequality, and contributions to the U.S. workers facing more dangerous working conditions than their counterparts in other wealthy countries, which leaves American democracy vulnerable. That is the conclusion of our recent EPI report on labor unions and the use of ballot drop boxes during U.S. elections. Since ballot drop boxes are a highly secure way to increase access to voting during elections, the Republican Party has sought to limit their use. Part of brand, wait a minute. Yeah, that is in this article. Has sought to limit their use as part of the broad assault on voting rights. During the 2022 midterm elections, for example, we found that unified Republican control of the state government was associated with 95% decrease in ballot drop boxes per capita. 17 states completely banned ballot drop boxes, and all but one of them had either a Republican governor or a Republican controlled legislator. By contrast, Democrats championed the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act of 2021, national legislation that included protections against numerous state level, voting restrictions, including those related to the ballot drop boxes. Senators Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, however, joined Republicans to block these reforms in early 2022. President Lee Shuler demanded, "We need mail in voting and ballot drop boxes." in every community in every state. At the state level, unions recently coordinated simultaneously protests in Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Miami, Phoenix, and Houston against disenfranch- disenfranchisement laws sweeping Republican led states. The most brazen of these bills, some already passed into law, would surpass high turnout voting methods by banning ballot drop boxes. One protest organizer explained unions even fought for access to ballot drop boxes at the county level. For example, when a council member in the Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, proposed banning drop boxes during the 2022 midterm elections, unions rallied outside the local courthouse to voice their dissent. To examine the relationship between such union efforts and access to ballot drop boxes, we analyzed data of 17,935 drop boxes available during the 2022 midterm elections. We found a positive association between county level union density and ballot drop boxes per capita using multi level negative binomial regression models. And union density was associated with a 9.8 increase in the number of ballot drop boxes per capita. This means that a new organizing drive that brought just one out of every 10 workers into labor unions, for example, could more than offset the decrease in ballot drop boxes associated with Republican control of state government. With voting rights under attack, it is hard not to see the decline of labor unions as an enabling factor in the erosion of America's democratic institutions. We need a resurgence of the labor movement not only to improve wages and working conditions for U.S. workers, but also to enable unions to continue their vital fight to defend American democracy. Okay. The percentage of workers in private sector who belong to labor unions has shrunk to a 6.9%. Labor historians report that this is the lowest rate of union members in America since 1910. Despite the expenditure of vast amounts of money, effort, and governmental influence by the labor movement, this trend shows every prospect of continue. How did union membership decline so much? Simply put, American workers now see the union as part of the problem, not part of the solution. That is a fact because I agree with some, I'm in the union and I agree with some things, but I see them part of the problem as well. That's true. hmm That is true. There are a number of reasons that account for this negative perception. Unions often seem irrelevant. I concur. In good times, workers don't need unions to secure increases in wages and benefits because everybody profits from economic prosperity. In bad times, unions can't protect their members from layoffs, wage and benefit reductions, and tougher working conditions. In fact, union contracts often seem to make things worse. That is true. That is true. The high cost of union labor is often cited as a contributing factor to the demise of many companies. Wow. While industries have fled the United States attracted by the lure of cheap foreign labor, other industries struggle to remain competitive. Two, unions have a poor public image as being bloated, inefficient, and often downright corrupt. That is a fact. Stories about labor racketeering, mob influence, and trials of union officials for embezzlement and bribery are common fare on the evening news. That is so true. Employers are often able to use this or greed and corruption to blunt union organizing campaigns. Three, workers are often out of sync with union politics. That is a fact. The labor movement is perceived as being a vessel of the Democratic Party and a champion of liberal causes. I agree. These most recently include immigration reform and national health care. Vast amount of money and manpower have devoted to support labor approved candidates and issues. Yet many workers, particularly in the South, are deeply conservative and simply do not support these causes. That is a fact. And every company that Trump has brought in that's building factories there, they all moved down south. None of them came up north because of the unions. They do not want their union dues going to support issues and politicians with which they disagree. Now, that's a fact. I stand on that one. Most Americans now turn to government, not unions, for basic protections. Facts. Workers rely on the government for pensions, health care, protection against discrimination, and a whole variety of other benefits that were formerly provided exclusively by unions. Unless the labor movement finds a way to reverse its long standing decline, unions run the danger of their membership shrinking into irrelevance. I concur. Now, what is the reason for the decline in labor unions and what are the potential consequences? I'm a retired union member, so I'm not exactly what would be called anti-union. There are, in my opinion, several reasons for decline. Many of the things that the early unions pushed to have either became law or standard practice. Facts. Example, overtime pay, 40-hour work week, work safety practices, health care, retirement plans. That's true. Many non union jobs offer competitive pay and perks compared to union jobs. That is true. The labor movement is currently experiencing several challenges, including a decrease in union membership, globalization, and employers' focus on maintaining non union status. As mentioned in the opening of this section, the United States has been a steady decline of union membership since the 50s. In the 50s, 36% of all workers were unionized, as opposed to just over 10% today. Claude Fisher, a researcher from University of California, Berkeley, believes the shift is cultural. His research says the decline is a result of American workers preferring individualism as opposed to collectivism. Facts, I concur. Other research says the decline of unions is a result of globalization and the fact that many jobs that used to be unionized in the manufacturing arena have now moved overseas. True. Other reasoning points to management and that its unwillingness to work with unions has caused decline in membership. I agree. How unions work for the economy. A few, let me see. A producer from Intelligence Square, a media company that organized debates, called and asked me to explain a few things about labor unions and discuss whether they help or hurt the economy. I was happy to oblige, talking to her for 20 minutes or so, and I was very surprised the next day when she invited me to participate in a debate in a question, do unions work for the economy? I said, yes, they do. I haven't been in a formal debate since sixth grade when I got my butt kicked. Back then, I argued yes in a debate in which the question was, are comic books bad for kids? After that debate ended, my comics loving classmates gave me and my argument an overwhelming thumbs down. During the week before the Intelligence Squared debate was to take place, I began to research to make the case that unions work for the economy and to respond to my opponent's expected arguments that unions are bad for the economy. My opponent was Allison Shirang, a senior fellow at Manhattan Institute. Based on the analytics, I won the debate. People discuss the economy, they typically focus on things like maximizing corporate profits or boosting the Dow Jones. But the economy is about far more than that. But the economy isn't so much about corporations as it is about people, about delivering goods and services, not to mention income and wealth to make people's lives better. Unions, by and large, help make people's lives better. If unions are about anything, they're about creating broadly shared prosperity, about lifting pay for workers and reducing gaps between rich and poor, about making sure that jobs are safe, and about assuring that people have health coverage and enough for retirement, and also have work life balance that gives them time to be with their families. In these ways, unions very much work for the economy. Why we have unions in the first place. Ever since I saw it, I have loved the bumper sticker unions, the folks who brought you the weekend. Americans often fail to realize how terrible many jobs used to be, how Americans often used to work 6 or 7 days a week a century ago. More than 2,000 coal mines die each year on the job. That's a staggering number that points to an extraordinary lack of regulation and to mining companies' inexcusable lack of concern about their workers' safety. Nowadays, only about 10 miners die each year on the job. We can thank labor unions for that. Both of my grandfathers worked in New York City's garment district, and as a result, I heard about the industry as I was growing up. There were tens of thousands of garment workers who used to work grueling hours, even 7 days a week, often from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. In my book, Beaten Down, Worked Up, I wrote about a garment worker, Clara, who complained that many weeks she never saw the sun, leaving for work before sunup and finishing work after sundown. Ap- Apparel workers often cheated, not paid for all their hours worked and all the piecework completed. At one factory, the boss tricked the workers by moving the clock's hour hand back to 5 o'clock when it was actually 6. Some factories even locked their exit doors to ensure the workers didn't sneak away with garments. Those locked doors showed a showing contempt for worker safety. Because of a locked door, a fire broke out. 146 workers died, most of them women, many of them teenagers. Because of that locked door, many workers couldn't escape down the stairs and facing unbearable flames and heat. Many jumped out of the windows to their deaths. That horrific fire at the factory, whose owners had led the industry fight against unionization, helped spur the growth of apparel industry unions. And today, thanks to labor unions, factories in the United States are definitely safer, and few factory workers toil 70-hour weeks. Lord have mercy. Wow. 2 decades later, the Great Depression had gripped America. Franklin Roosevelt and the New Deal Congress felt that far too many workers had wages that were far too low. They thought that workers needed more bargaining power their employers in order to increase their pay. In 1935, FDR and Congress enacted a landmark law, the National Labor Relations Act, that not only made it far easier to unionize, but gave the federal government impetus to union organizing. Helped by that law, millions of workers unionized during the 30s throughout the 40s, creating large, powerful unions that won far higher wages, often engaging in huge strikes that dominated headlines. Unions pressured General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, U.S. Steel, and other companies into agreeing to give their workers big raises and good benefits. And in that way, unions were pivotal to building America's middle class. That's a fact, which soon became the world's largest and richest middle class. Organized labor success enabled millions of workers to buy homes and cars for the first time. And in that way, unions also helped push up the pay of millions of non union workers by prompting many companies to significantly improve their employees' pay and benefits to help discourage them from seeking to unionize. Unions were pivotal to building America's middle class, which soon became the world's largest and richest middle class. Nowadays, Americans think of the auto industry jobs as safe, solid, middle class jobs, but that wasn't always the case. Before the industry unionized, these jobs were often unsafe and exploitative. Workers often mangled and sometimes lost fingers and hands. Some factory managers forced workers to do things like mow their lawns for free under the threat of losing their jobs. Wow. And work for lower pay. Before unionization, such blatant workplace injustices were common. In Beaten Down, Worked Up, I wrote about auto plant conditions in the 30s. Mm. A New York Times reporter visited a GM plant in Flint was shocked to see beehive-like swarm of workers and the speed of their labor. That reporter, Russell Porter, wrote thousands of men performing the same operation all day or night, 5 days a week, the year round, completing 60 cars an hour. They seem to work on strings as a monster jerks them back to begin another car. Speed, speed, speed is what they said was the motive at that Flint plant. One Buick worker complained, "We didn't even have time to go to the toilet. If there wasn't anybody to relieve you, you had to run away and tie the line up. And if you tied the line up, you got the hell for it." Yeah, I know he is. Yes, he is a businessman. Yes, in many ways. And thank you for being here, John. Yes, in many ways, it sounds remarkable like Amazon warehouses of today. In the historic Flint sit down strike of the 1936 and 37, workers at General Motors, then the nation's largest corporation, ferociously anti union at the time, finally got GM to recognize their union. Alfred Lockett was overjoyed by the union's success and resulting in the contract. The inhuman high speed is no more. We now have a voice. We are now treated as human beings, not a part of the machinery. Oh shoot, I think I'm gonna stop reading there and then I'm gonna get out. Yep, I'm gonna make this part two. Yep, and then I'm gonna do when I go back to unions, we're gonna do the economic benefits of the union. Okay, let me get to these some of these videos.
About 1,300 journalists and other
this what's happening today
were placed on leave indefinitely, a situation that has become all too familiar for federal employees in the last 2 months.
We are concerned anytime there's sort of a wholesale shutdown of a newsroom.
Tonight, the U.S. Agency for Global Media, the latest federal entity to face cuts under President Donald Trump. That includes Voice of America, which was created during World War II in order to combat Nazi propaganda. This latest dismantling prompting concern.
You say, what? When are all numbers when it comes to corporate? That's a fact. And I'm a union employee trying to retire. That's a fact. We are all numbers. And you will be replaced. That's a fact. I agree.
According to William McCarran, who is the director of the Press Freedom Center at the National Press Club.
It appears to be on the border of being dangerous.
In a statement, Mike Balsamo, who is the president of the National Press Club, said the cuts, quote, undermine America's longstanding commitment to a free and independent press.
It is something that's designed to help countries who don't really have a robust journalism of their own be able to understand what's going on in the world and with a factual basis, something they can rely on.
Also part of the cuts, Radio Free Europe and Radio Free Asia, organizations whose intention is to provide unbiased news to countries who otherwise might not have access to it. They broadcast to more than 40 countries, including Russia, Ukraine, and China.
So they'll have 60 days to get another job if they're completely cut loose. And so this is a problem. They could be in 60 days being deported, to China, where they will not be treated well.
McCarran says he's worried about what could happen to those journalists, especially the ones who work here on a visa.
We have to pay attention to, is it a step towards something more?
But when asked if the future of the First Amendment is in danger, he says we'll have to wait and see. Among these 6 other agencies that are also facing cuts in Friday's executive order, the Institute of Museum and Library Services and the Minority Business Development Agency. In Southwest DC tonight, I'm Melissa Kim, WUSA 9.
Yep, a lot of people have, but I'm going to tell you one thing. Trump is winning against these unions. He is winning. He just won another appeal. He just won a number of appeals. Okay, March 24. Okay, let me get here. He winning. Oh, shoot. And I'm gonna retire before we go under another contract. Yes, I am. Hold on, I'm looking for this next article, this next video. Okay, here we go. Let me see now. Where is it? I'm where I need to be. Okay. Just give me, okay, here we go. This is the post office.
Today, U.S. Postal Service workers in Metro Atlanta will gather to speak out against privatizing their service. It comes as President Trump considers moving the agency under the Commerce Department. Atlanta News First Blake Devine is live this morning outside of a post office.
You're right, they are weak because I stick up for my own stuff. I don't need a steward. I handle my own business, and I will call the National Labor Board, the NLRB myself, and file complaints. I don't need nobody to stick up for me. I stick up for my own self.
Taft County. Blake, this will be the second rally of its kind in the last week.
Megan, another rally will take place a little later today in North Decatur as local letter carriers will call on President Trump to leave the U.S. Postal Service as an independent agency. Just last week, we saw dozens of folks gathered in Marietta outside their main post office to rally against the privatization of the post office. And that was during a day of action. It was one of 200 rallies nationwide with the group's goal to protect the Postal Service. President Trump has considered moving the agency under the Commerce Department and doing so through an executive action. The Postmaster General says his agency will work with the Department of Government Efficiency to cut 10,000 jobs. So we caught up with the head of the postal unions, Marietta Chapter, who believes this would limit where and how deliveries are made.
Privatizing we don't want to see happen is going to gut the Postal Service. The Postal Service is older than the United States of America, over 250 years.
Keep in context, though, the USPS has reported significant losses over the last 2 years. The total in 2024 was $9.5 billion of net losses. Now, as for today's rally, it'll take place at 12:30 at the Decatur Golden Corral. We've been told that they were not allowed to protest on the premise here at a post office. Reporting live in DeKalb County, Blake Devine, Atlanta News First.
Blake, thank you.
It's raining outside.
Today, U.S. Postal Service workers in Metro Atlanta will gather to
Wait a
speak.
minute. That was the one I just played. Hold on. And those protests were held all around.
Guys, no, thank you. You take away my family, I lose who I am. Everyone out here is fighting for a cause that we care about.
Now at 11, delivering an urgent message. Local mail carriers join others across the nation in making their voices heard. Thanks for joining us tonight at 11. I'm Amber Grigley. For the past few months, WRTV has told you about issues regarding the USPS service in Central Indiana. Now, the issues have some asking for privatization of the government service. Mail carriers say that move could backfire. Our Griffin Gonzalez has the latest.
Not for sale. U.S. mail, not for sale.
Whether you're in a big city, out in a rural community, we serve everybody every day for the same price.
The USPS has a saying, come rain, sleet, or snow, they deliver in every weather. On Sunday, protesters delivering an important message about the privatization of the USPS.
We're against any privatization. It's not good for the community. That the public wants the Postal Service. That the public is on the side of the non-privatized Postal Service.
Standing through the freezing rain on their day off, people like Jody Prince screaming to send a message.
Showing everybody who we are. We are a union, family love, and work hard every day.
Why are you out here?
I want our union to stay alive. I don't believe in privatizing. We lose on our service. We lose on our team, our family. We do everyday service for people. If you take that away and privatize us, we become less effective as a unit.
I think it's a great example of the kind of work that, we can do collectively, in our government.
Even members of the community coming.
I kind of agree with you with privatization because the Postal Service has been unprofitable for decades. They don't make any money. Does not. And people rarely, buy stamps or, I haven't mailed anything in over a year. But they don't make any money.
To show their support.
If it's privatized, the goal becomes money and not the mission of the post office to reach everybody.
There hasn't been any formal proposals about changes to USPS, but then President-elect Donald Trump did say in December that the idea of privatization would not be the worst idea. But back in Central Indiana, mail carriers hope their neighbors understand the impact this could have.
Any problems with the Postal Service, it's not the employees, it's not the people in the postal offices. We want to serve the people.
People can have greater strength when they come together and support each other. So it's important to me to come out here and support them.
In Fishers, Griffin Gonzalez, WRTV.
Now, the protests didn't stop in Fishers. Earlier this afternoon, more postal workers gathered at the Indiana State House with the goal of bringing the issue in front of the state's leaders, hoping to encourage them to take action. Judith Dill has been a mail carrier for 30 years, and she tells WRTV the Postal Service is more than a service. It's a relationship.
Very important for our community, our people, especially our elders. They don't get to get out and deliver to mail their mail. So we're there for them to pick it up and even to go check on them if they're having a bad day. If they want to have a conversation, they have somebody that come out to the mailbox and say, hold on to. Because sometimes our elderly don't have things. We service our community, and we're very proud to do that.
For more information about the Postal Service and their goals, it's all available online at WRTV.com.
I wonder why this stuff. Okay, now that went away. Okay, so that did go. Oh, I think I deleted the wrong doggone thing. Okay, hold on. Oh, that's something else. Give me a one moment. What date am I going to? Okay, let me get to that date. I have so much information, it just don't make no. Now, what date is this? All right, I'm just about there where I need to be. Give me one moment. It's pouring down raining. Where's the... I couldn't have that. Make this up. I couldn't have... Oh, okay, here we go. It's finally coming up. Oh, shoot, now I can't see. Okay, here we go. Here we go.
We need political leaders to understand, yes, what's at stake, but also responses that are going to protect Canadian jobs. And I'm just going to say, there's a stark thing happening at the moment. We have
I agree, John.
who are saying very clearly that the revenue that we collect from retaliatory tariffs will be used to support working people.
It will.
To support working people and their industries. We have other political parties who are saying, no, we're going to use that revenue to give everybody a tax cut. Well, guess what? A tax cut is not going to be much good to you if you don't have a job to start with. So let's start with defending the jobs first and then worry about the tax cuts later.
We have about 350 people employed by our company. We got a lot of immigrant workers in our place. We've got about, I think, just over 100 Ukrainian workers that have came to our country looking for employment and a better life. And a lot of their status or whatever is being here, their residency depends on having a job, right? If we need financial support on a temporary layoff or something, this is a temporary thing, so be it, we need that. But like they said inside our hall there, we're not looking for education and second careers, like we want our jobs here.
Having worked at GM Oshawa for 23 years, we've seen it all. We're used to the ups and downs and the fighting. Some of us that have been there for a long time, always concerned. But one thing that we're good at doing is fighting for our jobs, and we'll continue fighting to build vehicles in Canada.
What we're saying right now is if you want to have access to the Canadian market, if you want to sell vehicles in Canada, you need to have a footprint in Canada. You need to be building things in Canada. If you're not going to do that.
Sound like what Trump been saying. It sounds like what Trump been saying. If you want to do, you need to build your plant here, or you're gonna pay a higher tariff. Before 1913, tariffs is what paid for everything in the United States. Woodrow Wilson, 1913, is when the IRS came about and that American people start paying taxes. Tariffs took care of the country before 1913, and that's a fact. But she's saying exactly what Trump been saying.
Then there's another set of rules by which you will have to play by. Because the reality is, we buy as Canadians 2 million vehicles a year in this country. We don't make in Canada 1.5 million vehicles. So we're already operating at a deficit. So to think that you can, as a corporation, make a decision that you're going to move a plant or shift production or shut down shifts or do whatever it is and still have full access to our market for free, I think you're going to see Canadians respond in a very serious way about any corporation that tries to do that in this moment. But also, government will have to respond in a fashion that says, no, you don't get to do that. You will be penalized if you think that you can shift production and take our jobs out of this country.
Well said. Well said. Okay, that was. Okay, let me go to the 31st. She sound like Trump 2.0. Excuse me. Okay, wait a minute. Let me find this. I think I passed it. Okay, yep, this is it. Okay, this is it. I think I'm gonna end with this one. Hold on. Let me bring it up because he is at the end. Sean Fain is at the end.
So
I can't stand Adam Schiff.
Focusing on those things. United States.
Okay, here we go. Here we go.
Mexico. So tariffs aren't the solution.
President
Okay,
Trump
here we
there
go.
praising UAW President Sean Fain, who came out in support of Trump's tariffs, and Sean Fain joins us right now. So the president may have slightly misquoted you, but the essence is there. You have come out strongly in favor of his tariffs. Can you explain why?
Hey, thanks for having me, John. And look, yeah, it's simple for us. Look, we're in a crisis mode in this country. You know, there is no single issue in this country that has affected our economy and working class people and their jobs than NAFTA, the USMCA, and our trade laws, our broken trade system. And we're in a crisis mode. And, you know, we are triaging right now. So I hear this debate about, you know, blanket tariffs and all this stuff. But look, we're in a triage situation. Tariffs are an attempt to stop the bleeding from the hemorrhaging of jobs in America for the last 33 years. So, you know, and as we speak right now, I mean, decisions are still being made. Warren Truck Plant right here in Michigan, there's over 2,000 people laid off. And a simple decision, Stellantis is shifting truck production to Mexico. They could change overnight and move those trucks right back here to Warren, Michigan, and put people back to work. You know, you have Deere workers in Racine, Wisconsin. We have Mack truck workers in Allentown, Pennsylvania, where the companies saying are going to move their jobs to Mexico. So tariffs aren't the solution, but they are a huge factor in creating and fixing this problem. And just to go one step further, I want to say this because I think it's important. You know, in 1992, I was a 23-year-old man. I voted for Ross Perot. And the reason
I did too.
Was during the debate between Clinton.
I did too.
Ross Perot talked about that giant sucking sound. And I'll tell you, in 1993, there was a debate between Al Gore and Ross Perot on Larry King Live. And Al Gore talked about the four living presidents, Nobel laureate economists, and everyone said this is going to create 400,000 jobs in the first year of NAFTA's inception. And you know what happened? We've lost millions of jobs since then. We've lost
sure have.
90,000 manufacturing facilities in the United States since the inception of NAFTA. That's 1,800
Facts.
manufacturing plants per state.
Yeah.
If any nation in the world lost that, their economy would be wrecked. So, we got to stop the debate and the stupidity on this, and leaders got to lead. And that's where we got to go with this. And to end that statement, I'll just say this. Al Gore was wrong. Ross Perot was right, and NAFTA sucks.
Yep.
So
I agree.
You said in your statement that you've been coordinating with the Trump White House on this. Have you spoken directly to Donald Trump?
No, we haven't spoken directly, but we've been working with his team. Members of my team have been working with them, and we're telling these stories. We're telling the realities of what Americans are experiencing, and working to find solutions, so we can move forward and fix this broken trade system, and get this corrected. Because the United States is the cash cow. The United States is the market everyone wants to sell in.
Yeah.
And we should have reciprocal trade laws where people have the same standard of living. I mean,
Facts.
and I'll say this, our neighbors to the south, Mexican workers aren't the enemy. They're being exploited, and it's because of corporate greed, and that's what's got to stop in this country.
So I'm sure Trump remembers this, and you do as well. You had some choice words for him at the convention in Chicago over the summer, the Democratic convention. Let me just play a short clip.
When Donald Trump was president, corporate America ran wild. Donald Trump did not bring back the auto industry. When Donald Trump was president, auto plants closed. Trump did nothing.
So you see something different now. Do you think that it's possible that Donald Trump might just be the president after those long 3 decades you just described? He might just be the president this time to bring back or help bring back manufacturing jobs to the United States?
Yes.
Well, look, I'll say this. The election's over. Donald Trump is the president, and we want to get to work to fix the problems that are wrong with this country, with our economy. And the American people expect that. They expect leaders to stand up and lead. They don't expect us to sit back, and they don't care about politics. They don't care which party somebody's from. They care about solving their problems. And so that's one thing Donald Trump has done. He's acknowledged the USMCA didn't go far enough. And so, there's an urgency now to fix this problem. And that's what we're going to work on. We're working with the administration now, and we'll see where it ends up. But I will say this. I mean, name me one president in the last 25 years that's talked about doing these things and trying to fix this broken system.
All right, Shawn Fain with United Auto Workers, thank you for joining us. Coming up, Donald Trump.
You voted for Duke. Why did you vote for Duke? I'm going to keep that. If I got rid of this, I'm going to keep that because I'm going to play that again when I start doing the tiers. I'm going to play that again. You must be down south. Duke was what, in Louisiana? Or Georgia? No, I think he was Louisiana. All right, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Louisiana, okay. That's what I thought. All right, I'll be back about those unions. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. I'm coming back with one more video. And it's going to be a fun video because I got to keep it real on here, especially about my politics, because I study everything. I can't help it. That's just who I am and how I always been. All right, well, I'm coming back with King Von, my top 5. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for coming through. I appreciate my new subscribers. Thank you for giving me a chance and an opportunity. Have a great night.